problem. I'm just curious.
No, it's taking time. We got it.
You got it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to make you the host again, Sherry.
Yes. All right, good. I think we're set.
All right.
All right, thanks a lot.
All right, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Have fun. So here's Michal. Did you actually?
Hi, Debbie.
Hi again.
I'm so glad to meet you, sort of, on Zoom.
Slightly in person.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
And Esther's here. Hi, Esther. Nice to see you. But we don't see you. And we don't even hear you because you're muted. But we'd like to say hello if you can unmute. There you are.
Hi.
Hi, good to see you.
Hi.
This is Debbie, and of course you know Michal. I don't think you know Jim, though.
Hi, Esther. How are you?
Thank you. Well, how are you? So nice to see you.
Do you know each other?
I don't think so.
No.
They didn't know before, but now they're immediate friends.
You're greeting each other like old friends.
Yeah.
Right. That's good. Yeah.
I have a blur background, but I'm going to take it off because I feel like I'm all blurred for some reason.
Yeah, it is blurry.
Yeah.
Tim was blurred. The other night we were doing FaceTime with our daughter, and he was all blurred. What causes that? Do you know?
I think that's a little better. Might be something with my
Camera.
with my camera.
Yeah. Well, it turned out that tonight was Academy Awards night, which I did not realize.
I know we have quite the competition. There's
And
lots
I didn't realize it either, and I should have realized it because I'm a filmmaker, and I'm used to thinking of it in April, which I think it isn't ever, but I think of it as being in April. So, so I'm sorry. There was great interest in this. We had a very good fundraiser, Debbie. I'm waiting for the final totals, to come in before I, in case there are checks and stuff.
right.
So it officially ended at Purim, but then we wait a little bit for last things to come in. But in the next couple of weeks, I'll send you some. We'll be able to send you some money with great enthusiasm. So
Thank you.
lack of attendance here tonight does not reflect lack of interest. I don't know what it
There might be a few people rolling in. Hi, Irv.
Yeah,
Hello.
good.
Hi, good to see you.
Is it Irv or Irwin?
Irv.
Irv.
Well,
Irwin is his real name, and Irv.
it's really Irwin.
What we call him.
Yeah. We don't call him Irwin, though.
My dad's name was Irv, and but he grew up. I did not know this until I was about 8. But he was born with the name of Abraham, and everybody called him Aby. And we were at the Cape, and this older gentleman. We were at a store, and this older gentleman comes running up to my dad, who I only knew as Irv. Yelling, Aby, 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 how are you? I never knew that he changed his name.
My dad's name was Abe. I have a friend who's Irwin, who uses the second syllable, and he calls himself Win.
Win.
So I've been Irv because nobody could pronounce Irv.
I think it was a good move. That must have been a shock for you, though, Debbie. Whoa.
Yeah, that was. It was around the time I was reading a book called Harriet the Spy. So, you can imagine.
Right, putting those two together. Oh, I remember Harriet the Spy very fondly. We used to
Yeah.
read it to our daughter. It was a great book. Well, I would say we'll give it another minute or two and then launch in.
So
And-
Jim, has your Purim been nominated for one of the Academy Awards tonight?
Oh, did you see it?
No,
Well, this is the Academy Awards. Didn't you know?
Yeah, he's not, and they're gonna nominate him, and he'll never know about it.
I mean, I'm always interested in, letters of recommendation to the Academy. I mean, anybody who wants to,
I don't even know their address. I never go to movies.
my brother is a member of the Screen Actors Guild, and he gets to
Really?
vote on their awards.
Well,
But he hasn't
then you,
offered,
then you may have an inside track. I mean,
no, he hasn't offered to introduce me, but I'm very happy with how it turned out, and I hope people are getting a chance to see it who weren't there in person. We had, Debbie, a separate videotaped version that we made that we put up on YouTube, as well as a live.
well, I very much appreciated that that YouTube version, because it was not all that easy to get all the
To follow it, yeah.
in the live.
Did the sound keep going in and out when you?
Was there a problem of being audible?
It was very unclear. It was really hard to get the sound. Some people spoke clearly enough, but some sentences were and some weren't.
Well, the YouTube version is very clear.
Yeah, it was very good. Very
And
good.
so, that's why we were particularly glad that we have a separate version that's up there on the internet.
Okay, I think we've chatted enough, and you have a small but mighty group. So I think it's time to start. I've passed around your resume and so forth, so I think we'll just launch in.
Okay, great.
So welcome you, and we're just really happy to hear from you.
Good. So first of all, I want to say thank you. The work that we do is very relational, and it's relational there in Ukraine, which I'll explain in a minute, but it's also relational here. And we have some donors and some organizations that we partner with that come in and they do one thing once and then they leave, or they do one thing once a year and then they leave. And that's wonderful. We need all donors of all and supporters of all different kinds, but you guys have come back again and again, and I just want to say how much I appreciate that especially in a time of crisis, the people that you can count on are the ones that keep coming back, and I just really appreciate that. So thank you. And Michal, I know you've been the point person a couple of times here, so
Only, oh no, only this time.
Only this time? I
Yeah.
thought it was another time too we coordinated. No?
Not me.
Okay.
Not me. Somebody who looks like me
Like
or
me,
something.
okay.
No one looks like you.
So thank you. And I know Jim has been an amazing supporter on many levels with his work here and his other hats. So I really appreciate Rabbi Jim as well. So the work that we're doing, the organization has been involved in Ukraine and in this area since 1975, when it first started doing refusnik work. And at the fall of the Soviet Union, it decided to stay involved, helping to rebuild Jewish life. And over the past years, that changed as the needs changed. And then it changed very rapidly when COVID hit. And then again when the war hit. And so I'm just going to fast forward to what happened on February 24th, and how we've responded, and how our partners here have been so important in our response there. So basically, before the war, we were, a very small grassroots organization. We worked with about 15 communities. Each community had a coordinator, mostly volunteer. We gave them a little stipend, and they helped us identify most, Jews that were in need, were not receiving services from other organizations, and had some specific needs. And each community, we served anywhere between, like, on the small end 10 and on the large end 30. And all in all, we served somewhere around 200 to 220, mostly elders or adults with disabilities. And I can share why those were the two groups that we focused on if you're interested. But those were the groups that we focused on. So then the war broke out, and 3 of our communities came under Russian occupation. And so our focus quickly became, and the war broke out. 3 of our communities came under Russian occupation, and the way we could get aid into Ukraine completely crumbled. So banks in Ukraine, I don't know if you know this, but banks in Ukraine at the beginning of the war basically closed down. They limited their hours. They put a limit on how much money people could take out. They were really worried about the collapse of the Ukrainian commerce system. People were in a panic. They did not know what was going to happen. Even though everybody had been talking about the possibility of Russia invading Ukraine, people in Ukraine didn't really believe that it was going to happen. The executive director of the Jewish community in Dnipro was here this weekend, and he was saying his daughter was married like the day before basically the Russian invaded. Like they were living their life as if nothing was happening, because they just really did not believe that this was going to happen. And so when it hit so hard, and things just collapsed. The way to ship things and get humanitarian aid in all fell apart. The shipping companies stopped shipping things in. The airport in Dnipro was bombed almost immediately. And then most of the other major airports were bombed. So there was literally no way of getting cargo into the country. So it took months to sort all of this out. And in the meantime, there was no supply of food going in. There was no supply of, the grocery stores were very limited in what they were getting. And people were really, really, really panicking. And so we had to pivot very quickly, and we had to create partnerships with different organizations on the ground. And we had to really change our operations very, very quickly. I mentioned that 3 of our communities came under Russian occupation. One of them is Mariupol. And if you've heard the news, you know that Mariupol was one of the communities that just got completely devastated. We lost contact with our coordinator there for almost 3 weeks. There was just no phone service. There was no internet. We couldn't get in touch with her. We tried back ways to get in and contact her. We couldn't. She finally was able to get a message through to us when she was leaving, and it was just devastating. She had a very elderly father with her who passed away on the trip out of Mariupol. And when they made it through Berdansk, which is another one of our communities, that's under Russian occupation. Our coordinator in Verdansk was actually able to help her bury her dad in Verdansk on their way out of Mariupol. But that, and I share that example as a way of how our network of people were really working together on the ground from day one. We still have about 10 elderly that are still in Mariupol. And about a month ago, our coordinator said, I have a way of getting medicine into them. If you send me money, I can send it, because we can't send money to, because they're considered Russian citizens now. I can't send money to Mariupol. I can't send money directly to Verdansk or Melitopol. They all have to claim that they all have to take Russian citizenship and get cards and stuff to function in those communities. But there's 10 elderly that are still left in Mariupol. So I was able to wire money to the coordinator, who wired it to a third party in another country, who then wired it to somebody in Russia, who was able to buy the medicine that they needed and courier it into these 10 elderly in Mariupol. And we were able to get in enough for like a couple of months worth of support. But this is the kind of work that we've been doing sort of behind the scenes. And so people, people often ask, where does the money go? Where does the support go? What does it do? So on one hand, we have a very structured system. We still have the elders and the adults with disabilities in all of our communities that are, I want to say 90% of them have stayed throughout the war. They have not left Ukraine. The elders from Verdansk, all are in Verdansk. No one left Verdansk because Verdansk got captured so quickly. No one had time to leave. So almost everybody is still in Verdansk that was initially in Verdansk. And then in Mariupol and Melitopol, most of the people, I want to say 50%, maybe 60% of the people from Melitopol and Mariupol, except for those 10 that are still in Mariupol, are displaced in Ukraine, that they did not leave Ukraine. They're just living in a different place in Ukraine, and we're still supporting them in Ukraine. And we send them money stipends to help pay for medicine and food and to subsidize heat and utilities, because inflation has gone up like a third of what it was from before the war. And then because the heat situation was so bad, that because they have been having rolling, so when Russia bombs Ukraine, they tend to target utilities. They'll take out the water transfer station. They'll take out the internet transfer station. They'll target the electrical station, and it sometimes takes Ukraine a day or two to replace it and fix it and get it working again. So we have elders that are going without electricity, without water, without cell phone service for days on end. So to help combat that, we sent in electric heaters, we sent in blankets, we sent in USB lights, power banks, electric vests, where headlights, flashlights. People put together what we called heat packs with like the heat warmer, the hand warmers that you use for skiing, and food that was high in protein but didn't require a lot of cooking, like tuna fish, sardines, peanut butter, protein bars, things like that. for the times that they were without electricity. And we've been sending that in on a regular basis as far as aid. And then we've been also sending in multivitamins and acetaminophen and ibuprofen. So that is like our regular core of what we send in. And then in addition to that, we partner with about 10 organizations in Ukraine that serves children, new moms. There's a senior citizen, like an assisted living home, places where military who have been injured are going for support. Another organization that also helps elders in Kiev. And we've been sending them activity kits, food kits, medical kits. It just as they call and say they need things, we gather them and we send them in. So we've sent in over 15 tons of aid this past since February 24th, so a little over a year ago. And we sent almost $80,000 in stipends to the elders and adults with disabilities that we care for. And also emergency stipends. So all of those people that I talked about that left Mariupol and Melitopol, they left with nothing. They literally left with like a bag of paperwork, and they needed money just to like make copies of their paperwork, get a new pair of shoes, get eyeglasses. So we were sending money to the coordinators so that they could quickly get like these emergency things that people needed as they were leaving these communities. Sometimes people needed a suitcase because they were crossing the border and they literally had plastic bags with them and they just needed a suitcase to put their things in. So you know, in a crisis like this, having those kind of on the ground relationships with people had allowed us to really pivot and meet needs and address things in a real humanitarian and human way. And the funds that we got from people gave us the capacity to do that. It's very different than traditional fundraising. Like usually you go to an organization and say, this year we're going to do X and we need to buy these supplies and we need to, you know, we're going to serve this many people. But with the war, you know, every month there's a different challenge that is not always anticipated. And the funding that we get really is giving us the ability to meet needs immediately when they come up. A really good example of a very small need that was so important was in the winter time when they were without electricity for so long. And it gets really dark in Ukraine, regardless of the war and regardless of the blackouts. But with the blackouts, there were no street lights. They like just turned off the street lights at all times. So if anybody was walking around at night, really even during the day, because it's so dark and gray, and most people have very dark clothing to begin with, it was very dangerous for them. And they could not get reflectors. They just don't make those kinds of things there. So we were shipping over thousands of reflectors for the Jewish Day School, for each of the communities that we work in, for the Jewish Big Brother Big Sister program, just to keep people safe. And that wasn't a big expense, but it was really so important. And it's sometimes these little things that we can do that it's not just about the saving lives and making things a little bit easier, because people living through a war, there's not a lot you can do to alleviate that. But what I've heard over and over and over again, especially for our elders who live in these small communities outside of the city, many of them have never left their small villages. They literally have lived in these small villages their entire life. Some of them have never gone even to Dnipro or Kiev or the bigger cities in Ukraine. And they get our packages and they get these little notes from people that in there, and they're just amazed that people in Boston care about them. It's so like they're in tears. I hear from the coordinators all the time that people are in tears because they feel so forgotten. They're so isolated where they are, and they're living with this unfathomable war around them. And they get these packages and they just feel, from strangers, from what they envision being so far away, and they feel so cared for. And sometimes that's even more important than the actual supply of what we give. I want to share one more quick story because it's the craziness of the war that we live with. But one of the communities that we work in is called Smela. It's a very, very small community. We have about 10 Jews that are kind of left in that community, and our Karde has been the coordinator there for forever. It's been very quiet there for the most part as far as the war goes. And at the beginning of the war, when everybody had issues with food, Smela actually was okay, and they weren't getting a lot of displaced people. It was actually like a quieter community. So our Karde, we're all on WhatsApp, and I get WhatsApps from people all the time. Our Karde sends me a WhatsApp, and he said, "So I just want you to know, I heard a noise this morning, and I looked out my window, and a rocket landed between his building and the next building." And he said, "But thank God it was a dud. It didn't go off." He said they had a whole bunch of people come, they surrounded it, they took it away, and I'm alive. Can you believe it? Like, it's mind blowing to me that our Karde in this quiet little village of Smela wakes up to a rocket next to his building. Like, it's just unbelievable to me. So I will leave you with that story, and happy to share some pictures and answer questions.
That is a lot. I mean, it's very moving just to hear about it, and I can imagine what it's like for you to be involved in it. And Jim and I actually had heard about the community and the Jewish community in Ukraine, and I was surprised to learn how many and diverse the Jews are. That it's a really very strong Jewish community with conservative and Orthodox and Reform and many synagogues, and we know there's even a Camp Ramah there, and we were surprised to learn that. But the work you're doing is just so, it's inspiring and touching and heartbreaking all at the same time, and really appreciate your telling us about it. And
thank you.
And we have some questions. Okay, so we have some comments. Irv.
Well, I want to sort of, share my voice with Sherry's, appreciating what you're doing. And I wonder if you would tell us, give us a few words about how you got connected with this
You've frozen, Irv.
I can hear him.
I can
Okay,
hear
now
him.
you're there. Okay, now you're back. Okay,
With
go
this
ahead. Sorry, you're
this
back.
project.
Oh,
But
good.
the other thing, I've been involved tangentially with this because of a project that I've been working on with a former student who was following the impact of the studies of starvation that were captured in a book that was published by the Joint Distribution Committee in 1946 by doctors in the Warsaw Ghetto. And that causes me to, and I know that the Joint Distribution Committee has been involved to some considerable extent in Ukraine, and partly with respect to starvation and nutritional things. And I just wanted to have you comment on that special area of interest about dealing with the way in which the Russian blockades and so on and so forth have made it more or less difficult for you to deal with the special nutritional needs of this population.
So I'll answer that on two levels. One, it's always been very difficult to deal with the special nutritional needs of this population, especially with the elders that live outside of the major cities. That's sort of what we were set up to do initially. We used to always give like these food packages. There's a big issue with diabetes and people not getting the right kind of food or medicine for that. There's a lot of nutritional issues even before the war. And now with the war, it's even harder. And that's why it's a really great question. And that's why we keep giving people the stipends, because we know that oftentimes in the standard food packages that they're not getting the very specific things that they need for what they can tolerate or what they need for their particular their health needs. A lot of the aid that's given out is just like a general basket of food. Even the stuff we send, we send a bag, and in the bag is tuna fish and peanut butter and protein bars, and it's not customized to each person. And so we try to, so that's why we also provide the money stipends, so that people can buy the specific things that they need. And then oftentimes we'll get calls from a coordinator who will say, so-and-so needs some special food or special medication or special whatever. Can we have a little bit of extra money to do that for this particular person? We also try very hard to provide services for people who are not getting services from other organizations. So for instance, there's a person in Verdansk who we're providing some services to. He's Jewish, but he used to be a newspaper reporter, and he worked for the local Verdansk newspaper until the Russian invasion. And then they wanted him to publish specific propaganda that he did not feel comfortable doing. And he could no longer work for the newspaper anymore. So he's without a job, and he's not considered old enough to get support from JDC. His wife is disabled and she would be eligible for support, but she's not Jewish. He is. So neither one of them meet the criteria for the JDC support. That would be a family that we would then support. You know, there's a lot of situations like that where people kind of fall through the gaps. I'm going to show you a picture of one of the women we support in Smela. She has diabetes. She had a leg amputated. I think she's 80 something, 88 maybe now. She was, her husband was Jewish. They lived as part of the Jewish community for their entire married life. They had a child who doesn't live in Ukraine. And they brought up their child's Jewish. She just never officially converted to Judaism. But by all purposes, she lived as part of the Jewish community in Smela. She has no one there now. And officially, she can't be supported by JDC because she never converted to Judaism. So we're supporting her. She's one of the people that we would support. So that's I don't know if that answered your question, but that's how we try to work with that.
What about your own history and how you got involved with the post-Soviet?
So my history is I come from a long line of working in administrative positions, mostly with teens and in synagogues, and I wanted a position that was a little less reactive and stressful, where I could, you know, sharpen more of my programmatic and fundraising and other skills. And this position was available. Little did I know that, you know, 2 weeks after the board voted me in, there would be COVID and then a war. But here we are.
Wow.
So, Michal, I think you had
Michal, yeah, she's been very patient. Yes, let's hear from you, Michal.
Yes, am I unmuted? I think so.
Yes.
Oh, good.
I can hear you.
I'm curious, Debbie, are you ever needing to actually to ship in actual goods as opposed to funds to buy goods on the ground there? And if you do have to ship in actual stuff, like whether it's medicine or whatever it is that extremely tricky? Can it be done sort of above board, or how does that work? Or it sounds like maybe there are enough still actual supplies to be purchased if you have the money there on the ground.
That's a great question. And it changes, it has, the arc of that has changed over the year. So we ship direct, we ship from here. We've now shipped almost 20 tons of aid from Boston to Ukraine. Wow. And we do it very above board. It's changed, how we do it has changed a little bit throughout the war. But basically we have a place here where we pack boxes, and then it goes to a shipping organization here in Boston that works specifically to Ukraine. And then it goes on a truck from here to their main headquarters in New Jersey. And then from New Jersey, it goes either on a cargo plane or a cargo ship, depending on which way we ship it. And then it goes, if it goes on a cargo ship, cargo plane, it usually goes into Poland, and then it gets put on a train, or it gets trucked into Ukraine to one of their distribution centers in Ukraine. So it's a little complicated. It goes through many many places, but it actually only takes, if you do it by cargo plane, if all goes, depending on how the timing works, if all goes well, it takes about 2 weeks to get from here to there.
And do you have to worry about corruption along the route, things getting skimmed off, or
So
any of that? Or not?
Luckily, we have not had that issue at all up until like 2 weeks ago, when 2 boxes got held hostage at customs. We got our director in Dnepro got a call saying that we had to pay taxes on the products. Now, mind you, I had just shipped her literally 20 boxes of these heated vests that are worth, you know, $80 each. And they made it to her house without a problem. And these 2 boxes, one had like soup bags in it and one had headlamps in it. And they were saying that we were gonna have to pay like close to $1,000 in taxes. So I said to Ella, I'm like, we're not paying that. It's not worth it. We're not paying the taxes. Tell them to send it back to me. And they got very upset and they said, well, who's going to pay for the shipping? You know, blah, blah, blah. And then mysteriously, these 2 boxes showed up at Ella's house like a week later. So we haven't had to deal with that until these 2 boxes. In the entire year we've been shipping things. It's been pretty amazing. Almost I think one time there were some Ziploc bags that were missing from one of our boxes, but other than that, we've really been very fortunate and being able to get everything through.
So remarkable.
Yeah.
Are you working with any other, do you work in terms of this, you know, delivering and distributing goods with any other US side foundations? I know you're working with organizations there, but are you ever partnering with other organizations here or no?
So in terms of like the big shipping agents, the organizations that do large amounts of shipping to Ukraine?
Yeah, purchase, yeah,
No.
goods and yeah.
No, what we've been doing is working with a lot of Jewish organizations, mostly Jewish, but some non-Jewish organizations to do the collection and mostly like the collection or the packing of the goods. You know, we had a woman in the North Shore who collected almost 2 tons of adult incontinence supplies right at the beginning of the war, when we couldn't get those at all anywhere in Ukraine, and it was a real health issue and a real problem. It's not an issue so much anymore, but at that moment in time, it was a real issue. And again, that's another good example of the needs change rapidly, and as a kind of our small little organization, we're able to really move quickly and mobilize people to meet needs. But we haven't really worked with the larger organizations for a lot of reasons, but
do you want to talk to us specifically about the telehealth project, or did you? And I missed it, or?
So we just
said that that's what we should contribute to. Remember?
Exactly. So we just finished. We just established our NGO in Ukraine. So we have a nonprofit in Ukraine now called Action for Ukraine. And we did that because when we had all that commerce issue at the beginning of the war, we've been very worried that if they, you know, it would just be helpful to have a bank account in Ukraine where we could have a set amount of money, and we wouldn't have to worry so much on Western Union and other things to get money through. Like, we would know that we had money in Ukraine. And we want to, for this telehealth project and another project that we're doing, we're actually contracting with an organization in Ukraine. And to do that, you have to be an organization in Ukraine to sign a contract with another organization. Otherwise, you have to pay like these crazy taxes, and it's not very cost effective. It's very difficult to do business in Ukraine. I've become this, as a little social worker who has no business background, I've become like so versatile in international Ukrainian business law, but things I never knew I thought I would know. So we have formed a partnership with the Jewish Medical Center of Dnipro, which is a medical center that was started by a group of people here in Boston as part of that initial Boston Dnipro partnership. And it has now grown to an amazing, amazing state-of-the-art medical center. And over COVID, they perfected their telehealth programming. So we're piloting this program, and I know here it's very commonplace, but in Ukraine, the health system is way behind anything we have here. So we're piloting this program in 3 communities outside of Dnipro for hopefully up to about 50 elders. And we're doing it because the hospitals, the public hospitals in any community now is overtaxed. They have, most communities have more people because they have displaced people that have come into their community. They have civilian war casualties along with the military war casualties. And they're dealing with not being at full capacity because they're also dealing with blackouts and staffing shortages and everything else that because of the war issue. So our elders are getting, that have like these chronic illnesses, are getting pushed to the bottom.
She'll come back. Hopefully.
Do you know that you're frozen, Debbie?
She knows she's frozen, but we can,
Can you hear her? No.
No, she's frozen, but I assume she's gonna come back.
Yeah. She could always sign.
Center.
There you are. Now you're back, I think. Right?
Okay. Yep. The Jewish Medical Center just has an ambulance and just opened up a rehab center. Rehab was something that never happened in Ukraine. And for them to have a rehab center is like, it's like futuristic for them. I can't even begin to tell you it's like it's beyond anything. It's beyond anything. They've only just started training people to be rehab specialists. So it's just beyond anything. So the idea is that they can even pick up people in this ambulance, bring them into the medical center and to the rehab center for a day or two if they need to have outpatient surgery, and then bring them back home. So we're really, really excited about this. And if it works, and if we can, get all the kinks out, it's something that I think will be it will benefit not just these 3 communities, but we'll be able to roll it out to more of our communities and more of our elders. It will really be a model for beyond our little pilot that we're doing.
It's wonderful.
Really, so impressive. Jim.
There was an article in the New York Times today about how the Russians are taking children out of Russian occupied areas and specifically out of Mariupol and taking them to Russia and making them Russians and having Russian families adopted and making a big hoopla over there about how they're saving children. I was wondering if you've been hearing anything else about what's going on in these Russian occupied towns that you can share with us. How are people faring there and what's going on there?
So it depends on the day. Things change rapidly in the, so I don't hear a lot about what's happening in Melitopol or Mariupol, to be honest. I hear we still have a coordinator in Verdansk, and I hear more about what's happening in Verdansk. In Verdansk, everybody has had to become Russian citizens. To date, they have been allowed to keep their Ukrainian citizenship as well. They haven't had to denounce it, but they have had to become Russian citizens. There's only one bank, I think, that is still allowed to work within the Ukrainian banking system. And that doesn't work every day. It's on and off. If you walk on the street at any time, a Russian soldier can ask to look at your phone. And if you have anything that they consider suspect, they can arrest you. It's very like, we have to be very careful when we talk to our coordinator, what we say and how we say it. We often have to talk in code to him. You know, when we send him aid, when we send him money and he's able to get it, it's usually through a third party, and it's through a whole system of things. And he literally takes his bike and delivers it person to person. There are times where the stores have specific things, and there are times when the stores don't have anything. It depends. Outside countries other than Russia are not able to get any kind of aid into Verdansk right now. So it's really dependent on what Russia can get in there. Up until at the beginning, there were some people in Kiev that we were able to courier some stuff into Verdansk, but we're not able to do that anymore.
Debbie, on the telemedicine project, is this a project that A.W. Karchmer and Barbara Karchmer are involved with?
Yes, how do you know them?
Well, A.W. is a colleague. We're both Harvard Med graduates, and we actually are neighbors in our summer homes up in Maine. But A.W. is an old friend going back to even camping days. But he's a very talented physician, of course, and Barbara has been telling us about her involvement with your program. I think she's been very much involved. Isn't that true?
Yeah, Barbara is the board president, and she is just unbelievably amazing. Unbelievably amazing. The most supportive person ever. It's been a very especially this year, it's been an incredibly trying year, and she has been unbelievably supportive. And she sort of dragged AW into it for a couple of specific projects, and he's just been amazing.
For the rest of you, AW is an ID infectious disease expert, and really in that profession at the at the same level of Fauci, to give you some idea of his eminence. He's a lovely guy. I'm sure that he's very helpful with that, with the medical side of things there. And I might as well say that even though I'm retired clinically, I'd be happy to be helpful in any way that I can.
Good, good. Yeah, we're thinking about pulling together sort of an ad hoc board of people here that could help if we need questions or support for the doctors there. So I might call on you for that.
Do you have his contact information? You wanna-
No, but I will get it. I know Jim. I know how to reach Jim.
All
So.
right. Okay, good. It's a great connection.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
thank you for bringing that up. I had forgotten to make sure to mention that. So I appreciate your asking the question about the telehealth project.
Does your organization or you ever have any contact with Zelensky?
Not with Zelensky, no. No, but the rabbi for the Jewish community in Dnipro, Rabbi Kamalinsky, it has had a lot of contact with Zelensky.
Is the Dnipro community, is that the community that Jim Morgan was involved with some
Yeah.
years?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you have some pictures to show us? This would be a good time.
Show
Yeah,
us pictures.
yeah. Let me see if I can share the screen. Hold on a second.
Do you have to make her a co-host, Sherry, so she can do that, or?
No,
I don't think so. I think anybody can share a
Oh.
screen on this one.
Good.
All right. Can you see this woman?
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So this is the woman I was telling you about from Smela, who is in her 80s. She has diabetes and has had one of her legs amputated, and she's pretty much bedbound. You know, I mentioned that they don't really do a lot with rehab in Ukraine. And she's a good example of somebody who has not had a lot of rehab or really a lot of good health care, to be honest. And you know, she's one of the people that we care for, because she kind of falls in the gaps of the other organizations that don't really care, that she doesn't quite fit the criteria very well, but she clearly needs care. So she's one of our people that we care for. Picture. This is one of the heaters that we got the heaters in Ukraine. So because of the electrical system, so that would be compatible there. And I know everybody's always asks, like, you know, why would you, with the power outages, what good does an electric heater do? And actually what happens is not all of them, but some of the blackouts are planned. So if they're planned, what people do is they use the heaters to warm up their apartments as hot as they can. And then it helps keep the apartment warmer longer. And then the unit itself stays warm. So if they're near the unit, they can get the heat from the unit for a little bit longer too. And then once the power is back on, these things heat up very rapidly, quicker than the heat in their apartment does. So it helps to then quickly heat up the apartment after the blackout happens. The problem is that what a lot of times the blackouts happen and they don't know when it's going to happen. So like our program director in Dnipro will say, you know, you can be in the shower and all of a sudden the lights will go out, or you're in the middle of cooking dinner and all of a sudden you lose electricity. This is an example of the light and the power bank that we got. And we specifically got these halo lamps, which are not usually seen as lamps, but we wanted the glow more than the actual lamp thing. We wanted more of the glow.
It's a nice picture. It's a beautiful picture, actually. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and this is a picture of like the heat warmers and some of the protein bars and the chargers that we got. It's really quite amazing, the stories that we've had from the coordinators as they've had to teach the elders how to use these things is hysterical. You know, they've never had to use power banks or USB lights or any of this kind of stuff before, and that in itself has been quite interesting. So these pictures I can't publicize, but I wanted to show you. This is actually in Verdansk, and we bought this coal, and they're literally they're spinning it out by pails to people in the community.
To burn for heat, right?
Burn for heat.
Yeah.
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 I mean, this is in Verdansk.
Mm.
One of the blankets that we got.
Huh.
This is one of those heat vests.
Mhm.
No
Oh,
one has
good.
seen these heat vests before. It took the coordinators days to teach people how to do these heat vests. It was all, I think the heat vests, besides being helpful for heat, it created a whole conversation, like the networking and interaction that happened with it was like the best part, I think, of these heat vests. This is one of my favorite guys. So I met him, he lives in Poltava. I met him on my first trip to Ukraine. He's actually one of our younger wards, or one of the younger people that we work with. I don't know if you can see, but he's in a wheelchair. He's actually the reason why I wanted to do telehealth programs and why I wanted to get rehab in there. When he was in his 30s, he had a series of strokes. And because they didn't have rehab, he basically became an invalid. He's in a wheelchair and he can't move his, I don't know if it's the right side or the left side of his body. If he was in the States, he would not be living like this. And he can't get out of his apartment at all. He's on the first floor. But even the first floor there, if you think like old Soviet structure, even the first floor there's a set of stairs to get up to his apartment. And then even the threshold of his doorway to get into his door, there's like a step to get into it. It's really unbelievable. And so I was asking him how he gets healthcare. And he said he has to like call a doctor, and sometimes they'll come and visit him, but it's actually really hard for him to get health care. And I was like, so this was in 2019 when I first went there. I was like, they need to have telehealth. And it's taken this long to get it going. But he was really my inspiration for the telehealth project.
Hmm.
I think that's everybody. I'll show you on this presentation, the very end. This is just, last year we gave out, we were able to find matzah through our connection in Dnipro. And we were able to help in Kiev give out matzah at the very last minute. It was pretty amazing. These are pictures of people literally leaving Mariupol. This is on the bus leaving Mariupol. This woman was amazing. She also left Mariupol. She had to go into Russia and then out from Russia back into Ukraine. She's a Holocaust survivor. She's 90 something. She has no one. She has no family. It's just amazing. Like the strength of this woman is just amazing. And this kind of shows you, this was our warehouse in Newton full of stuff to be shipped, box being shipped, and then what it looks like when it arrives in Ukraine on a pallet. And then these were all the heaters at the at a place in Kiev that we distributed them from. So
Amazing work, Debbie.
It's
you.
really, you know, it's both heartbreaking and heartwarming to an intensive degree. It's just amazing.
But I think it's important. I mean, I started with the idea of relations and relationships, and I think that's what this is all about, right? It's about having relationships with people there and having relationships with people here, and literally being a human bridge between the two. And I think that's what's really going to make the world a better place. And I really thank you for your part in all of that, and for helping us be able to do the work that we're able to do. We couldn't do it without people like you caring and wanting to learn more, and willing to listen, and willing to think about what's happening there. It's not easy.
We thank you for your work and for telling us about it. I mean, I had no idea the depth of what you were doing there, and the personal involvement, and how much it means to them. It's just so touching, and we really appreciate it, all of it.
Do you
Thank
speak
you.
Russian, Debbie? Do you speak
I-
Russian? Or you
I
could-
don't.
No.
I don't. And I'll be honest, they're not speaking Russian. Even our like 80-year-old, bubbies and zadies are now trying very hard to speak Ukrainian,
Ukrainian.
because the anti-Russian
Right.
sentiment in Ukraine right now is so high.
Do you speak Ukrainian?
No,
No. Right.
How many times have you been there?
I was there just twice before COVID hit.
Not since then.
Yeah. So
Wow.
Well, they're
thank
lucky.
you for giving
They're
us
lucky.
the opportunity.
Yeah,
Thank
they're
you.
what?
they're lucky they hired you. They're lucky they found you.
Mhm. Yeah, well, thank you for giving us the
Thank you.
opportunity to be able to help be part of this
Absolutely. Yeah.
bridge of help.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
All right. Have a good night.
You
Thank
too.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Sherry, for organizing.
Oh, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I'm verklempt, to be honest.
Thank you, Michal.
Bye. Thanks, Debbie.